to Mr. UFC Vegas Fight Club TV. I'm Kyle, your host. Welcome to the podcast, and if you like UFC and gambling content, you will love this channel. Subscribe, kick that bell icon so you know we're dropping content here. We do predictions, best bets. Ain't doing too bad this year. Check it out, subscribe, get involved. So, today we're going to talk about the scariest fighter in the UFC. Is he the scariest fighter in the UFC? Is Khabib Nurmagomedov the scariest fighter in the UFC? That is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go over it. We're going to dissect that a little bit. There's a lot of different things coming out. People are talking about who's the scariest, who dodges who hasn't been able to book fights. So I wanted to take a look at that and kind of dive into it, put it out to the Fight Club, have you guys kind of talk about it, see what you guys think, and I'll give my little 2 cents here first. So, when you look at Khabib, obviously he's 25-0. He's a Sambo multiple-time world champion, judo black belt, ground and pound, possibly some of the best we've ever seen in the UFC and maybe mixed martial arts ever, up there. Some legends that were back there in the day, but his ground and pound and the way he's able to keep people to the ground is unbelievable. And if you look at it from a perspective of, who he's beat, I mean, obviously the Edson Barboza fight was an absolute murder. Almost feeling bad for the guy, when you got a guy in the caliber of Edson Barboza who is a top, fighter, and he treats him like a guy that's, a high school kid for 3 rounds is really unbelievable. He also went out and beat Michael Johnson. He's beaten Dos Anjos. So he's beaten some great fighters. And part of me looks at that and says, well, he is ranked #1 in the world right now. And he hasn't fought some of the great fighters that are in that division. And to me, that already kind of starts to put it towards people are scared of him. I mean, people are scared of him. And there's no doubt about it that there are fighters that are scared of him. I mean, if we look at his division, you go into the lightweight division, you take a look at the guys that are ranked, the guys that he hasn't fought. You've got, Eddie Alvarez, Gaethje, he beat Barboza, Poirier, Kevin Lee, Anthony Pettis, Chiesa, Ali Quinta. I mean, there is, James Vick. There are some really good fighters in that division that he has not fought. And I think part of me, it could be circumstantial, it could be maybe the timing wasn't right, or maybe there was a situation that it just didn't work out. However it may be. I know they've been trying to book this Tony Ferguson fight. I know that that's a fight that they've been trying to book a couple times and all these other situations. But when you get to a point like this, it's almost, you almost got to start looking at the other divisions and what we're about to go over. Who else would you say is as scary as Khabib? Who is as scary? So some of the guys that would first come to mind would you have to go with the pound-for-pound king in Demetrious Johnson. Now, Demetrious is the flyweight champ. He's 27-2. He's 14-1 inside the octagon, which is pretty unbelievable. 14-1 inside the octagon. Unbelievable. Now, would you say he's scary? I don't know if I would put scary with Demetrious Johnson. I would put, overly and unbelievably athletic, an extremely talented martial artist, a world champion. You would say a lot of those things, where he fits within the UFC. He is that. Now, I don't believe anyone in the flyweight division is scared of him. Just because the way that he finishes people, just as the way that the fights end. Obviously, he's got submission victories. He is a dominant champion. But being scary is different. It is different, and it's that aura around you that people, when they step inside the octagon, they are prepared to get hurt. They know it's coming, and it's an overwhelming feeling for them. And another guy, I guess you could say, looking at it, is someone like Robert Whittaker. Maybe Robert Whittaker was one I looked at. And you look at him too, he has beaten some great fighters. He beat Yolo and Jacare. Those two guys were the the definition of scary. I mean, they really were. I mean, Yolo still is a scary human being. Obviously, just the look of him, his ability, his athleticism, his striking power, his quickness, all of that goes into scary. And I would really put Yolo in that category of, he's lost. He's definitely taken some losses, but he is a scary human being. And if we're just, again, talking about scary, he's up there. He is definitely up there. But Robert Whittaker going in and beating Romero, beating Jacare, he's beat Derek Brunson, he's beat some, I mean, for him to go back-to-back puts him in that category, Whittaker in the scary category. But his demeanor, the kind of guy he is, doesn't give you as much as being scary. But to be able to go up back-to-back against those two guys who were legitimately being dodged by many fighters. I mean, Bisping was literally running from Romero. There are a lot of guys that run. So you could definitely put Romero in that category. Now you go a little bit higher, you go to DC. You go to Daniel Cormier. Now, Cormier, 20-1 in his career. He's 9-1 in the UFC. Only loss going to a questionable loss to John Jones. So in that situation there, you look at it the same way, and he's beaten the who's who of his division. I mean, he's beat them, from top to bottom. I mean, pretty much, which is why this super fight is happening between him and Stipe. Now, would you say that he is a scary human being? That's up for debate. I could see people going both ways because he's only lost to John Jones. He has dominated his division. He could be. That's up there. I would definitely put him another guy that's in that conversation. And again, with the guy that he's fighting in Miocic, Stipe is up there too. Stipe is 18-2. He's 12-2 inside the octagon. So he's another guy that's there. I would put in that category as, definitely scary individuals that are in the UFC. But I would still say, right now, where we are at this state, those guys are definitely there. I mean, would you put Woodley there? I don't think I'd put Woodley there. If you're looking at some of the other champions, the other one I wanted to actually bring up was on the women's side. You've got Cyborg, who legitimately is a scary individual. I mean, if you're just talking the men, that's one side of it. But if you start talking about, Chris Cyborg, she may be the most scariest, I would say definitely the most scariest female athlete inside the UFC over a long period of time. So she's up there as well. This is another one. And again, I'm bringing these up because I'm throwing these out there for you guys to comment on who you think. Do you disagree, agree or disagree? Kind of see how you guys, really work through the list as I was doing it. And it's actually fun to kind of look at it and say, wow, there are a lot of guys out there. And again, if you're trying to crown the scariest guy in the UFC, that's what we're trying to do. It's not just pure record or championships or any of that. If you're just looking at who people are scared, who are fighters are scared, what opponent, who are they scared of? And that's what we're trying to decipher a little bit. So Cyborg is up there. She's 20-1. She's 5-0 in the UFC. So she's definitely in there. I would put her very at the top. She's right up there. The way that she wins, and the way that you would cut. Now, let's just hypothetically say between Demetrius Johnson and Chris Cyborg, who's more scarier? Between those two, everyone off the plate, who between those two would an opponent? Of course, it's male and female, but as an opponent, who is scared? Without a doubt, it's Cyborg. Without a doubt, it's Cyborg. Demetrius Johnson, a great champion. Gonna go down as a Hall of Famer, but not scary. His ability is off the charts. His athleticism and his mixed martial arts ability is just off the charts. But Cyborg, the way she goes into these fights, the aura around her fights, how she finishes, how she goes out there and imposes her will and is able to knock people out pretty much whenever she wants, to an extent. She can be playful. I mean, even against Kunitskaya, who of course she's a lower level fighter to Cyborg, I mean, Kunitskaya had her back and she was laughing. So it's that where she just knows her ability, her strength. Women are scared to go up against her. I mean, there was a point where Ronda Rousey and her, they were at the pinnacle and they were both talking about it. And to me, honestly, Ronda didn't want a part of her. I really believe that Ronda Rousey did not want any part of Cyborg. So that again says, you know, she's a scary individual. So you got to put her into the mix as well. Other people that I would throw out there, Brock Lesnar was one at a time, but the only situation there, and I know people will bring up his name, the situation there really is his striking. You know, he is a scary individual when you look at him. His wrestling skills are tremendous, but I don't know if I'd put him as a scary mixed martial artist in the UFC. Looking at him, yes, he's scary. He's like, you know, you got Romero. He's got that build that she's just made of muscle from top to bottom, but is he the scariest guy in the UFC? I don't think I'd put him there. John Jones is definitely another one that you would say he is scary. And the reason is just because of his length, his reach, you know, his movement, and altogether his ability. And again, he's another guy that's never lost. He's never lost in the UFC. So he's another guy that's up there. You know, you would definitely put him up there. A little questionable now with the steroids and all these other things going on. So he's up there, but the steroid situation, I would then move him down on the rankings. Looking at it all together, I would have to say Khabib Nurmagomedov is the scariest fighter in the UFC to date. And even guys like Francis Ngannou coming into the UFC, knocking guys out left and right, he was starting to get that. And as much as I liked him, you know, I really believe that he can be a tremendous athlete within the UFC. Right now, he is not the scariest. I mean, you know, his cardio really was exposed in that last fight. But he was getting there, where people are saying, holy cow, take a look at this guy, look at his striking, look at his movement, breaking the record for hardest punch ever thrown. All of these things were starting to build as, wow, this guy, and then it just comes off of the plate very quickly when Stipe was just able to just wrestle him and do whatever he pretty much wanted to him for 5 straight rounds. Takes him off the plate as well. I think you really got to look at just Khabib, his body of work, but who has dodged him? And where he hasn't been able to book a fight. I mean, you look, Khabib is 9-0 in the UFC. 9-0. I mean, there are guys much less, you know, even with Francis Ngannou, couple wins in the UFC, and all of a sudden, you know, he's got a title shot. You know, Khabib, in the beginning, I believe, it was tough for him to book fights. I think that people did not want to fight a guy that you just can't get off of when he's on top, you can't get off of him. So I believe that was part of it. I think a little bit more could have been some marketing part of it too. That he wasn't being pushed, up the ranks as much. But when you're 9-0, when you win 9 straight fights in the UFC and you come in as an undefeated fighter, he should have had a title shot a while ago. It was the McGregor era, so a little things were changing within that. But I believe that he is the scariest fighter in the UFC. I would put Cyborg very close to up there. What she's done with throughout her career and in women's mixed martial arts as a whole. She's definitely up there. You know, like I said, John Jones with the situation. But other champions, you know, Cormier and Stipe are up there, but as in scary, I'm not sure if I give them that much. Stipe, I mean, obviously, he's up there, but I would not put him up as a top #1 guy, scariest. You got to give it to Khabib. Overall ability, and if he goes into this fight, and as excited as I am for this fight with Tony Ferguson, if he goes in there and he dominates if he dominates Ferguson, if he goes in there and just from the beginning is able to impose his will, get him to the ground, and just maul him on the ground for a couple rounds, get the decision or get the TKO, whatever it may be. This is really going to be interesting to see where his career goes, and 2, if McGregor is going to step in and fight him. And I really, really, really believe, and again, I've said this on multiple podcasts here, that I believe McGregor is scared of Khabib. I actually believe that. I am not taking anything away from McGregor. I don't think that he is, his ability isn't there, or that he isn't an amazing mixed martial artist. I just believe that it's such a contrast to what he's able to do compared to who he's fought and what he's been able to take advantage of in the striking when he fights certain fighters, I feel like it's a bad matchup for him. And I think Khabib is a bad matchup for pretty much anyone in the division on what he's able to do. If he gets you on the ground and gets on top of you, there is a very good chance you're not getting up. There is an extraordinary good chance you're not getting up. And there's not many guys, even top wrestlers in the UFC, that can say that. So I would really put him as the scariest fighter in the UFC, Khabib Nurmagomedov, as the #1 guy. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree? Disagree? Do you think that there's another fighter that I have not even mentioned that you guys believe is more scarier than Khabib? Let me know what you think. And this is Mr. UFC Vegas, Fight Club TV.